Hi everyone! Welcome to another episode of Nathan's 3D Factory. In this episode, I'm going to show you how to model a spider. I'll get you started on this so that you'll be able to do this on your own. You'll be able to make some really cool stuff, okay? So first, I put together this wolf spider PNG, okay? So I downloaded something from the internet and then I ended up modifying it so I could have symmetry and all that. So let's put that into here. So let's drag it directly into my drawing here, okay? Or into my model. So, right off the bat, you have this right here. I can scale this up. So, I want this to be a decent size on my print bed. So then I'm going to do Alt G to get that right in the middle there. So let's see. I want to have this a little bit bigger. So it'd be kind of a creepy size because this is going to be sitting on my actual print bed. Let's see. And right now that shows is I don't know, what size that is exactly, but and it's a little bit bigger than this 20 millimeter by 20 millimeter by 20 millimeter cube. All right. So it's not terribly huge. In fact, I think I want to scale it up a little bit more. Okay, there we go. The beauty of this 3D modeling is that you can rescale it and do all that stuff. And so my intent is I want to make this kind of like a simplified or like a toon type of a spider, right? So first, I'm going to divide this cube in half. Now I made this perfectly symmetrical on here. As I went into my image editing program, I use GIMP. You can use Photoshop or whatever photo editing software you use. But I ended up doing a symmetry of it. The original didn't have it all symmetrized, so what I did was I said, well, I want it to have symmetry so that I can rig it later, do all that stuff, and kind of pose it, you know? And it's really cool for that because then you can get all types of different ways to model it, whether you're doing animation or 3D printing in my case. Okay, so now I'm going to tab out of edit mode for a moment and I'm going to add a mirror modifier. Okay, so now I'm going to rename this to Spider. And I'll also do that for the mesh data as well. We'll keep that all taken care of there. And if you guys know how to auto rename these objects here, for the sub objects, I'd really like to know that because that would really make a huge difference. So I think there's a tool out there to do that, but I just haven't found it yet. So let me know in the comments if you know that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tab back into edit mode. Then I'm going to start moving things around. So I'm going to take this right here at the middle and this. All right, and then I'm going to, and you'll notice I enabled clipping so that if I kind of mess up toward the middle, doesn't matter, you know, because it's all going to stay centered at exactly 0x. Okay, so I'm using this as a general guideline to get my model started here, okay? So one thing that I want to do is I want to get at least vertices at each of the legs. And I'll explain why in a moment. So there's one right there. There's one right there. Okay, so I'm going to take that. And I'll just grab that and kind of pull that toward there. Okay, and now another one right here. So now we've got to start here for this. All right. I don't like how high this is, so I think I'm going to take this down. And I can always adjust it as I kind of artistically look at this, right? So there's our start. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to duplicate that. S, Y, -1. Okay, and then I want to put it along the y-axis there. So once I get that, what I can do is that I can fuse these together when I'm ready for them. So, so I don't think I want to do that quite yet. All right, so I'm going to scale this along the y-axis a little bit. GY. Okay. And then I'm going to add another edge loop right to here. Okay. There we go. I just wanted this one here. If I don't have these exactly aligned with each other, doesn't matter, because you know what? These are going to be organic. And typically, if you have these lined up with an orthographic projection, then what's going to happen is it's just going to go along 2 axes. It's not going to go along 3. So now that I have those all taken care of, I'm going to bridge these edge loops right here. Okay, so then I'm going to go Control E, bridge edge loops. Now, what I want to do also is make sure that we don't get any faces that are going on the inside of this object. So I'm going to delete that face there. That's one thing I've noticed when I'm doing bridge edge loops like that. All right, and I may also want to slide this up here as I'm doing this. So I'll do Shift V for vertex slide. All right, now that I've got those taken care of, what I want to do next is I want to add another edge loop by pressing Control R. And then what I'm going to focus on next will be the legs. And to extrude these legs out, what I want to do is that I want to take these vertices here and I want to bevel them. So these 4 vertices right here are going to be the ones I'm going to focus on. So I'm going to press Control B. So this immediately goes to the bevel command. Now what I want to do is I want to change that to vertices. And then I want to change that also to 2 segments. And then you'll notice that it does kind of this like inverted diamond shape, I guess you could say. So on this profile, I want to change that. So as I slide that, I want to get it to about profile of 1. Okay, that was not exactly what I was wanting there. So let's see. All right, so pull that back out. 0.1, not 1. I'm sorry about that. There we go. So now that we have that, we can start looking at these legs and kind of playing around with these, right? So I don't quite like the way that these segments are going, but you know what? I think these should be all right for this tutorial. Okay. And we can also change the width on this. And then we can, and then what we can do is we can modify these accordingly as we're like going through our editing. Okay. So I'm going to start out with this leg right here. So I'm just going to clear that out by pressing this side. Okay. There. And then what I can do is that I can control right click on this. So then I can scale it as I want to. I can start playing around with this. Okay. Let's see. Got that. All right. And you'll see right here, it's just a super easy process. Actually, I think I want to add another segment here. And then just scale as I want. One thing that I learned on this as I was doing this stuff is that the bevel tool comes in really handy. Okay, there we go. All right, so that's one leg right there. Okay, probably can't see this too well, so I'll get back into the solid view. Okay. Okay, there we go. Okay, I'll do another one here. So, and I'm starting these spiders because I'm going to start selling some spiders in my shop and getting myself ready for the Halloween season. And I got to say, I love the Halloween season, okay? So, that's part of why I'm really getting into this right now. All right, so now do the same thing for this. And then I can flare it out too. So, coming around here. So, pretty easy method once you get going on it. Okay. All right, now we just have this last leg here, which would be the fourth and the eighth leg. Oops, hello. Okay, so that's another thing is you want to make sure that you have only the faces that you want selected. That I didn't do on there. Okay. Pretty fun stuff here. I gotta say, I really enjoy just modeling stuff, just sitting down and just having fun with this, you know? So, got that. Okay. Just keep going with that. So, let's see. Okay, so there we have a Spidey body. Fun, huh? So, and what we're going to do is we're going to take this and kind of flatten this out. So, and then I'm going to do some proportional editing as well. So I'm going to go back into wireframe mode for a moment. And so a lot of this now just becomes, now it's interpretation, you know? So then I can start going proportional editing, G, And then sometimes you just have to kind of do like some like incremental editing, you know? You can always smooth it out later as well. So, and I don't want this totally flat on the bottom either. It's going to be flatter on the bottom, I think, but it's not going to be totally flat. Okay. And then once I start getting this all like rounded toward like the top and bottom, then I'm going to start like rounding it out on the sides too. G, Z. And I don't want to mess up the legs or anything. I just want to keep those kind of where they are. And then I'll worry about those in a moment here. GZ. Okay, let's see. All right, so you see where I'm just like doing this here. There we go. Okay, now I'm just gonna start doing the ones that are on the outside and kind of curving them away, curving them downward. Okay, that last one, I selected the wrong vertex. This is where having a lot of just kind of orbiting around while you're doing your stuff really helps out with doing your editing process. Okay. There we go. Okay, did I get the right one there? Looks like it. So, another thing I've learned with modeling is keep it simple, stupid. The KISS method. Okay, I'm also going to go into my wireframe and I'm going to pull this back a little bit. Okay. All right. That's getting better. Looking a little bit more like a spider and a little less like a whatever that was at the beginning. Nope, didn't want that. I wanted this one. Okay. Okay, and then I can see that there's some parts that are still kind of a bit blocky looking on these areas too. So I'm going to take those and kind of just curve them away. Okay, let's see. Nope, wrong one there. And maybe I can go back into the solid here. Then what that does is that kind of blocks out like what's not needed for like the background stuff. Okay, let's see. Okay, and I'll also pull this one back too. Pull this back. And then I get a nice shape here. Oh yeah, right there I still want to kind of pull it away from like kind of being all blocky. And another thing I can do too is that I can also put a subdivision modifier on there so that that way we don't have it all blocky looking and choppy, and we still get to keep our geometry pretty simple, you know? Okay, so now that I got that, what I want to do is that I want to take the geometry that's around each of these legs and have this so that they go into quads. So I want to make sure that everything is put into quads here. So what I ended up doing when I first started doing this was I was like, okay, so I think I just need to get that. And so I kind of experimented with that as I was doing it. With, okay, so we just need to connect vertices so that we get these quads. Now we still have right here a 5-sided figure. 1, 2, 3. Actually, okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's a 5-sided figure right there. So, well, this is where you can subdivide things to modify your geometry. So, right here, I'll put loop cut here, loop cut here. Okay, so so you just kind of join those together as you get these, and then I can also subdivide this. Okay, I did not want to subdivide that last one. Okay, that one right there. Oops, let's see. Okay. So you get that idea. However, looking at this also, I also put rings around these. So I'm going to actually undo some of this geometry I did. And get rid of that edge loop. Okay, so I also did this, where I just joined these edge loops. Okay. Okay, so now I have these items now where I got like the start of a loop here. And I can say, all right, I want to subdivide that. Okay. So now we have those taken care of. Now I just want to turn these into quads. So that's where I have that. There we go. And then I can use the knife cut okay. So do the same thing here. now join these. So I can do knife and I can do join on these things, right? And then I can slide these as I need just so that they don't look so awkward with the geometry. And I just keep doing the same thing along this. I'm going to do the same over here. Join. I'll start from here. Do the same right here. And I love doing this kind of stuff because it doesn't have to be exact. So that's the other thing that's really cool is as you're doing these organic surfaces, you get to kind of flex a little bit, you know? So, and, you know, as you look at them, it's like, okay, well, this definitely is testing me artistically here, but it's getting me somewhere, you know? Okay. Same thing here. All right. And then I can join these two together. So again, this is just tracking like where your quads are and aren't. So that takes care of the first three legs. Now it's just going to be that last leg. That's going to be the challenge there, right? So we're going to continue following the same pattern here. All right. And then let's take a look at this last one here. And this is where we want to keep those quads. And that way what it does is it keeps the edge loop flow going so that if we need to select an edge loop, that we get stuff so that you don't get like really weird deformations or anything. And it's just a lot easier just to be able to select those edge loops and keep track of things a lot better. All right, so now I have one more thing I want to do here. So this is always the debate, you know? It's like, where do you put some of these edge loop cuts, you know? To where it doesn't end up going across the entire mesh, you know? So right here, I think I can control my mesh symmetry, geometry, whatever you want to call it, right here, because now I still have quads right here. Yes, we can do n-gons, but I like to keep it so we have quads. Okay. Okay. All right, now with this, I can also do a knife cut from here to here to here. There we go. I saw that there were some polygons over here, some pentagons, I should say. But now we have quads everywhere. So that gets us started with at least the basic shape of this. Okay, and then I can just kind of move these around again. Make it a little bit smoother here, because that just looks a little bit too squarish. Okay. And then what I can do is I can just round out these corners. Okay, so we can also take these and we can edge slide them. There we go. Okay. There we go. All right, so now we get these vertices that we can slide. All right, so that is how we get that to just kind of get a little bit more of an organic form. Okay. So now we have these legs that are just straight out, and maybe we don't want that, you know? Now, we could do this in two ways. We could do the model edit, where we just we do that, or we can rig it with an armature, or we could do a hybrid, you know? So, in fact, right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start using the proportional edit. Okay. I can start putting these down. Okay. Oops. Let's see. Okay. There we go. Oops. Hello. Okay. So, I won't go too much more on here, but this kind of gives the idea of what you can do on each of these models here on doing a spider. Okay, let's see. All right, so this is getting toward the end of this, I think, where I'm just doing kind of like this last minute editing. So I won't do too much more, but I just want to get these legs kind of like into place. That wasn't quite what I wanted. So again, you're going to be seeing me doing a lot of just kind of my imperfections with my editing. But you know what? This is stuff for you to learn as you do your stuff. You know, as you start to learn how to make these type of models. go. So, fun stuff, you know? It is a lot of fun doing these kind of things. And so I hope that, as you're looking at this, that you're getting some inspiration as well on how you want to be doing your models like your spiders or other things where you're going to have these organic forms. So let's see, I'm going to actually turn to this view right here. Okay. Okay, and just go back to 2. Okay. So, and maybe they're not perfectly gnarled, crazy spider leggy limbs, whatever you want to say. But you know what? This is all creativity. And you can also like resize them. Maybe you don't want them to be like long and thin. Maybe you want them to be kind of short and stubby and kind of comical. Then you can also kind of like swell them, do that kind of stuff. So, anyway, but here's a simplified spider that you can do. And so this gives you a start on this. I can go through other stuff like facial features, whatever, but I want to keep this to here's the form that you get. And you get this nice modeled mesh that you can have that has like good even geometry. And you know what? It's fairly simple as well. So let me know what you think of this episode in the comments. I'm also going to add a second level subdivision modifier. Shade smooth. Now let's see. I also want to make sure that I do Shift N. There we go. So that now everything is outward facing on the faces, okay? So again, like, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to leave a comment on what you thought of this episode. Are there any methods that you do differently? And thank you so much for watching this episode of Nathan's 3D Factory. Have a great day, guys.